Hey friends, it is Ask a Flower Farmer Wednesday. It's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler here, and I'm just standing here at our doorway, and we're having kind of warm temperatures and some rain, so it's a pretty good day here for us. I hope you're having the same. So if you're new here, the way this works is I do my best to answer your questions about flower farming or business, growing, whatever, whatever your fancy is, I'll give it a whirl. And if you want me to answer a question, just post it down below. See the little bubble with the question mark in it. If you post your questions in there, then I won't perhaps miss it trying to scroll through everybody's names. And the other thing is, I just absolutely love it when our students use the sunflower emoji, because if you don't know what that is, those are people that are students of our online courses. So we just love it. Folks connect that way. So it's really, really great. And it's always just warms my heart to see so many of our students that are following along beyond their course. So let's see, what are we going to talk about today? I mentioned before, and I'm going to say it again, you need to bookmark our new seed category on our store, because we are kind of in this constant process of adding new seeds to our line. We just added a bunch of new stock colors, the flower stock, apricot and a lavender, all so totally beautiful, as well as, y'all, some new marigolds. Have you heard about the No Cinto? Do you know what that is? That's a marigold. And it was named because, so they say, I have not grown it yet, but of course it's on my growing list, and other people that I know have grown it and loved it. It is a marigold that has no scent. You know, the foliage is what makes scent. So you'll find that over on our website. There's not a great picture yet, but that will be coming as soon as we can get our hands on one. So we've got a bunch of new marigolds, because here's the thing about marigolds, that a lot of people, if you're not in the bouquet making business or selling to a lot of commercial customers, marigolds, because they are such a long-lasting, sturdy flower, meaning they last kind of like carnations do. They're in that same shape and use. And we also, Lane, I didn't look, is that vanilla, the ivory color also been put up? No. Okay. So we have some new colors coming down the pike, and that's why you really want to just bookmark our new seed category. So find those over at thegardenersworkshop.com on our online garden shop. And so I see I already have a boatload of questions, so we better get started, right? Let's see what we got here. So Chris asked, does the burlap trick work for all seed starting, soil blocking, or do you usually just use it for snaps? No, Chris, that's a great question. And so she's asking, sorry, y'all, my allergies, my ears are itching bad. Chris is asking about, she's seen me use the wide weave burlap, and that is regular burlap, but it's a wide weave, and we literally just lay that on the surface of every time we sow in soil blocks, and I even use it sometimes on plug trays. It just really depends on if it's a surface sown seed, meaning it needs light. And I just want to say to y'all, what I have learned about what needs light, a lot of that equation is not so much the light as it is the oxygen that the seeds get. So don't worry about covering it with the burlap. So any seed that we sow on the surface, which are most of the tiny seed, that's all the celosias, many of the cool flowers, we lay that wide weave burlap. We don't use plastic or domes just because it's so easy to encourage disease and fungus to grow under them. With the burlap, it does maintain moisture on the surface, but it also allows air to get through. So it's kind of like a better of both worlds. You get the benefit, but without the actual problem. So yes, any surface sown seed we sow gets the burlap. How long does it take to get your seeds sent to Washington State? Well, we ship Monday through Thursday, June. And if you get your order in at this time of the year, usually it's a day, at 2 at the most. And we ship them out, and we use first class mail or priority. So it would take what would that be, Rhonda? 2 to 3 days?
Until we ship it?
No. Once we ship seed packages. They say 2 to 3 days, right? Yeah. So pretty quickly. I know that we have the statement on our website to expect delays, and that's more on the shippers side of that. But we're still having great results. So yes, we're moving them out. We move them out pretty quick here, and the post office we have the occasional delay, but that's not the rule anymore. Zone 7. Can I start sunflowers now and cover for early blooming? So, Jenny, it's not really about your zone. It's all about your frost dates. We will begin our first sunflowers. My last spring frost is mid-April. And so we will be starting our first sunflowers about the first 10 days of March, I think, like that first week or two of March, because we plant sunflowers when they're 2 to 3 weeks old. So that means I'm planting them out about 3 weeks before our last spring frost, which is a gamble because then we start planting once a week, right? And so the earlier you start, are you going to follow that and do it every week? That's just a bigger gamble. So that is up to you, but so far I wouldn't go more than 3 or 4 weeks at the most before your last spring frost, and you definitely have to hoop and cover them. So they'll take cold, but you don't want to damage them, but also you want them to grow. That's the whole point, right? So they need that added protection. And then let us know how that goes. Of the spring started hardy annuals, I just love that y'all are actually picking up on all the language. I'm just so proud of everybody because I know it's complicated. So Tweed Thistle Farm has pointed out that we're not talking about fall planted. We're talking about very early spring. Of the spring started hardy annuals, which won't use succession plant? One planting keeps giving. So that's a great question. So I'm reading that again. We consider our fall planting and our very early spring, if I plant them at both times, that is succession planting, right? The only ones for my region, and I have to tell you, this is so unique to everybody's individual growing skills and growing environment, what your summer is like. I mean, do you go straight into hot, humid weather like we tend to do here, or do you have long springs? Would be two totally different answers. But for us, we tend to succession plant Buplerum and only Amazon, Sweet William, and dill. Those are the 3 that I'm pushing the envelope on, but I'm doing an experiment on that this year. But I will tell you, that experiment, you have to really apply it knowing that your growing conditions may not be the same as mine. So hope that helps. Hunt country flowers. Do you plant everything by hand? Yes. Do you sit on a rolling stool? No. Bend at the waist? No. What's best agronomically? So first off, Bobo and Christine do all the planting now. I probably haven't planted in 8 years or something, just because everybody has their job and that's not my job. However, I will tell you that Bobo and Christine both are down on the ground with their legs folded under them, planting, and you can't believe how quick they are. You can bend over, and I have a couple of different planters that I've tried through the years, but the girls, frankly, prefer to do it by hand, feel like they do a better job by hand, and they're quicker. So that's what the bottom line is to me as the farmer, is whatever is the best way, the quickest, most efficient, and keeps your people happy. And they prefer to plant by hand. So yes, we actually do. If I was still in high production and had more area, I would definitely, and I had more area to maneuver my tractor, using a tractor implement planter where people sit on the back and plant is super efficient. My friend Amy, who I get to see today, y'all, they use a big planter, and that is pretty amazing, but we do it by hand. Do you start your sunflowers in 128 trays? Yes. Also, please remind me what soil mix for the sunflowers. So, for starting the weekly sunflowers, so you have sunflowers every week, y'all. You got to start them every week. You only plant one type variety and color. That's the constant usually. You can break it up, but there needs to be one that stays the same. We use 50% potting mix and 50% finished compost, and we buy bags of compost. It is just much more convenient, and we know it's completely cooked. So we buy bags of compost, and we buy bales of potting soil, and Bobo or Christine just put 50-50 into a big tub, mix it together, and that's what we use every week. And we use 128 plug trays, which you can find on our website. For cool flowers, what should the temperature be in your grow room? Mine was between 62 and 65, and I felt like germination was poor, so I put a small space heater in there, but now it's 70 to 72. So we feel like what we maintain our room at for germinating, cool season hardy annuals, is 65 to 70, and 68 being the happy medium there. And another really big piece of that is what type of heat mat? Are you using a heat mat that has a built-in thermostat, which definitely the air temperature affects that? Or are you using a bigger, more expensive mat that has an external thermostat? So that really makes a big difference. But for cool flowers, 68 degrees is our target. How far apart do you plant the straw flower seedlings? Irene asks. So, and I'm just reading the next question. Y'all are too funny. Okay. In general, I plant most of our annuals when I'm planting transplants. I have 30-inch wide beds, and in a 30-inch wide bed, I put choo-choo trains here. 4 rows of plants, and in the row, the plants are 6 inches apart. And that's what I planted our straw flowers at. So I hope that helps. So this one's funny. It's not a flower farming question, and totally not my business. Of course it's your business. I'm like public, right? But have you tried using rubbing alcohol as eardrops for your itchy allergy ears? It always helps mine a ton. I will give that a whirl. Meryl says, hi Lisa, what would be the best cool season green filler? We live in Estonia, zone 4A. Thank you. So, first off, if you're in zone 4, I would almost be willing to say that you could grow cool flowers all season long. Meaning you probably don't have hot, humid summers like we do. And that cool flowers would just keep right on producing right, all the way through your grow season. Of course, Bells of Ireland come to mind, and Buplerum. I mean, those are 2 foliages that we can just never, ever have enough. And just thinking, Feverfew, it all depends on the stage of harvest. We're always ravaging the garden when we're desperate for foliage, so you kind of learn stuff that isn't quite blooming yet, but it'll still hold up if you cut it. And I tell you, the one that I absolutely adore for this is Virgo Feverfew. It's different than all the other Feverfews in my experience, most of the others. It's got a tight head instead of having that big loose head of all those little blooms, which is another great way. That's why I grow 6 Feverfews, y'all. The Virgo has a super tight little group of blooms, and I have learned that I can cut them before any of them have even colored up. If we're desperate for foliage, so Feverfew, Buplerum, Bells of Ireland, and dill even. Dill you can't cut early, but you can use that as also for foliage, the bloom head. My blocks have matted roots underneath. Did I do something wrong? No, Carly, you haven't done anything wrong. Wished I had some here to show you. So the whole, what you will evolve into is figuring out that not only does it help you with success, but maintenance is a whole lot easier as you perfect your seed starting timetable. And that means when you actually start your seeds. So if the roots are growing all over the place, that means that perhaps you started them too early, right? We want to be picking them up to take them outside to plant them in the garden. You know, it's not, I mean, you're first off, you just break them apart. That's no big problem. I mean, I've done that a million times. We hardly ever get to plant stuff at the perfect time, especially when you get into big production. I mean, all it takes is 2 days of weather to screw up your whole schedule, right? So you just to plant those, you just break them apart. And if you've got a bunch of hanging down roots, I just take a pair of scissors and chop them off. You don't need them. I mean, that's just pruning them. And then you can plant them. But the goal for the future is to not start so far in advance. So it's just easier for you to manage, right? So you didn't do anything wrong. You may have just started too early. So remember, anybody's got a question, post it down below in the bubble with the question mark. And I have a line of questions here I'm going through. So if you didn't know that. Do you suggest direct seeding cold hardy plants like Buplerum in zone 4A in the spring, or should I start inside? So, Zomac, I'm not sure what part of that is really your name. That's a great question, and we're doing an experiment, but I will share this with you. I have a private Facebook group called, the name of the group is The Flower Farmer Show, okay? And it's open, it's specifically for people that are aspiring or are flower farmers. Over in that group, there is my step-by-step directions of how I start Buplerum in plug trays. And why I'm sharing this with you is because we are now experimenting with several of the other fall direct seeded stuff. Buplerum, dill, nigella, bells of Ireland, all of those things that is too cold for you to fall plant, but you need to very early spring plant them. And direct seeding them is not going to get you ahead of the game at all. You need to start them indoors. So if you request to join The Flower Farmers Show over on Facebook, there's several thousand people in there, and I swim in there, as well as Jesse, our advocate for our group, for our business, helping people get information, and there's a lot of good sharing going on. And just look at the top. It's pinned to the top as a feature, and that's how I would recommend you start your Buplerum. And to start other stuff, like I know that Mark, who is on here, I think has done it with dill with great success, so that would be a really good benefit for you. Future Farm, do you ever start Buplerum in the prop house? We're trying to direct seed less, but I'm having a hard time with germination. We have pre-chilled in the freezer. So first off, I don't have any hoop or greenhouses, so that's not an option for us. But what I just shared with the previous person would be very true for you too. You need to get over on the Flower Farmer Show Facebook group, which is my group, and find those Buplerum instructions in there, and totally agree with you. We do anything to prevent having to direct seed because it's just not nearly as successful and it's a lot more work. All right. I tried your Buplerum and the way you told us to do it, zero success. Any suggestion? Yeah, go back and reread it, Sarah, and do it. I mean, I'm getting pictures from people. We do it that way. You know, you fill this tray, the 128 tray, with soil, you wet it, you surface sow the Buplerum, and then you cover it with another plug tray, and you don't touch it for 10 to 14 days. I'll say it again. You don't touch it for 10 to 14 days. And when you take the top off, typically it is loaded with stuff. So I would go back. The other thing that would be a problem if you've done that is the temperature. It needs it cool. We put it on the actual cold concrete floor in our grow room. So give that a try and see if that doesn't work. Do you start all Snapdragons on the cookie cooling sheet? Yes. It's a cookie cooling rack. or just the snapdragon seeds that you'd sow in fall or very early spring. I'm growing Potomacs this summer, and I'm wondering if they need to go directly on the heat mat or on the cookie cooling rack. So here's what'll help you kind of like, I don't want to tell you exactly what to do. I want to tell you how to figure out what a seed needs. If it's a cool season hardy annual, which a snapdragon is, then we find that the heat mats are just a smidgen too warm for them. So we place the cookie cooling rack on top of the mat and then put our trays on that. That creates a small space, which just tones the heat down a little bit. They still need consistent warmth, but not quite as warm. So that would be my answer is yes. Anytime you start snaps, they would need that treatment. Is it too early to start hardening off Calandula, stock, or Scabiosa seedlings in zone 7? Again, it doesn't have anything to do with your zone. It is your frost date. Your zone really only tells you, when we're talking about cool flowers, what could possibly be fall planted to winter over. That means if you're zone 7 and it says it's winter hardy to zone 7, that means you can fall plant it. It is your last and first frost dates that tell you when to actually do the planting. And I understand how absolutely wide and deep this whole subject is. I made a special series. I did it like last year or the year before. You can find it over on my blog, thegardenersworkshop.com. Go to the resources, go to my Field and Garden blog podcast, and then go to the cool flower category. It's called the Cool Season Flower Chronicles. It is 5 30-minute videos of me answering all the questions that we understand that it's hard to wrap your head around them. And I just addressed those questions, and I talk about that over there, that it is your frost dates that are so key to when you actually plant. So you want to plant that stuff out 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. And then if you're going to harden off, you can start moving them out about a week before that. But again, if it is super duper cold, you wouldn't want to start doing that without some kind of protection, right? All right. Flower Preservation Studio. Hi, I'm in the UK. Funny, I've been talking to the UK this morning and cannot get natural here for my soil blocks. Shoot. Can I use neem oil instead? And if so, what is the recipe? Oil to... Thank you so much, Kristen. You know what? I have no idea if... I'm just thinking. I don't know if you have gone to the natural company, sometimes manufacturers of products that don't sell to the public. They just sell wholesale, big bulk stuff. Sometimes on their website, they'll have a thing that'll say something like, where can you buy it? And they'll actually list who their customers are, like people like me. And I don't know if you could find somebody in the UK because, it's just amazing. So I don't have a better answer for you than that. I do not think that neem oil is the same. I just don't even know. So natural is a larvicide. It's a strand of BT. So I really cannot counsel you on that. But shoot, maybe I bet Rhonda's scratching her head. She loves to figure out that kind of stuff. Maybe if we figure what? Rhonda's yelling to me, you need to find a BT product. If you go to our website, doesn't our website list what the actual ingredient is? Yeah. You can go to our website and copy what the ingredient is, and that's what you need to look for. So, sorry about that. How we wished we could ship to another country, but y'all, I just can't even tell you how complicated that is, and costly. How many hours per day should I keep my heat mat on for seedlings? Yes, 24 hours a day is what the heat mat is actually on 24/7. As long as there's something on it, it's on. Sun-Kissed Flower Farm asks, can you intercrop early spring and fall planted cool flowers? Hoping to plug in where I've lost some. So that's a really interesting question. We were just talking about this because my friend Amy, that's coming here today to meet me, she's coming to pick up some stuff. She lost deer decimated she's a big farmer, a huge planting. Like 200-foot beds, several beds. The deer decimated Almost all of it. So what do? Do you leave that crop or do you replant? Because it is a really big maintenance problem. So my recommendation to you is we never interplant, because the ones you plug in are going to be later than the ones that have already been planted and established. And then that means that bed's going to be tied up longer. In my experience, what I do is if I have more, like if I fall planted and you start again in very early spring, I just start on a new spot. That way you minimize the loss of that production area. So that's just the way that we look at it. I can't wait to ask Amy that question when she gets here. Do you start the natural even before the blocks are under lights? It just depends. So every Wednesday when I water, everything in that room gets natural. And if there's something that was just put on heat mat, the next morning after they were sown and put on the heat mat, yes, they get natural. Anything in that room, it's more about maintaining the integrity of the population in that room and controlling it is what it's really all about. All right, we're getting down to the end here. Carol, I've set out 2 rows of cool flowers with Bio 360. Our last frost date is March 15th, you lucky dog. We are getting 80-degree days and the plants are suffering. Should I possibly remove the Bio 360? It's black side up and I've been wetting the beds to cool them down. So Carol, March 15th, so you must probably be in Georgia maybe, or lower South Carolina or Texas or somewhere. Yeah, I think that with a March 15th last frost date, with those kind of temperatures, I would have probably put the wet side, the lighter, the light gray or the white side up. But I would look at your 2-week forecast. It doesn't tend to be a problem after the plants are established. Even when they're still small, and then they of course start growing and the canopy of vegetation shades the surface and tones that down. So, the other thing that you can do instead of pulling the Bio 360 up is just put a very light layer of mulch or compost on top of the Bio 360, because that'll cover the black and stop that heating up, and it'll just become part of your bed. That's probably what I would do. So I hope that helps. It's always, never, no 2 seasons are the same, y'all. Have you grown or seen in person the new Peach Pro Cut? No, I have not, but I cannot wait. And I've talked to people that have, but I haven't seen them in person, and I cannot wait to grow them. They're on the top. They'll be some of the ones that we start, because would that not be like a totally awesome early spring, like last year, how I grew the lemon, the whites, and the gold light. I mean, those were such great spring colors. I'm hoping that peach will just scoot right in. All right, couple more questions. Hi, Lisa. What would be the best cool season green filler? I think I've already answered that. When can I plant my sweet pea starts in my unheated greenhouse? So it really depends on your frost date. You want it to have, cool. Sweet peas thrive in cool. We actually fall plant them here in zone 8A, 7B. And so again, it would be 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost. And so here's the thing. Even let's just say that you're in zone 7 or zone 8 where you could have fall planted them. Let's just say you still would not plant them a whole lot earlier than that 6 to 8 week window, because you don't want it to be too cold when you plant them out there. It's like we're going down to 22, I think, on Saturday night. So you're trying to get out of that kind of weather. So that's why we always just follow the rules of 6 to 8 weeks before my last spring frost. So I would apply that. And if you're in a greenhouse, you might be able to do that earlier. But again, I have absolutely no experience growing in houses. Autumn fresh cut flowers. Can you talk about sandbags for securing row covers? Where do I get them? or the supplies for making them myself. So we sell the sandbags. I mean, that's literally what they are. You can look online and find any other sources, but we also sell them, and we fill them. They should be filled with about 15 pounds of whatever you're using, whether that's soil, sand, or gravel. And we put a sandbag weight. She's talking about what we use to weight row covers down. And with spring coming, that's the windy season. It is really smart to have the proper weight and enough weight bags. And I will tell you guys, I mean, we have constant, steady, strong wind, and I can keep row covers down. And what's the secret? Having enough bags of the proper weight. When and you can go to the product page at thegardenersworkshop.com for row covers, and there's a short video in there that just shows how I do it. I put 3 bags. We use, first off, wire hoops, which you can find those on the website too. We place the hoops anywhere from 8 to 12 feet apart, just depends on what I'm doing. Have enough weight bags that there will be 3 bags at each end of the row, and then 1 bag at the foot of each hoop on each side. So however many bags that is. And so the way I put it down is I put 3 bags at the end. I stretch the row cover out. Some people tend to want to gather it in. You don't want that. You want the row cover stretched out so the bag is sitting on the largest real estate of row cover, right? So there's 1 bag in the middle and 1 on each side. And then I go to the other end of the row and pull the row cover, not super tight, but taut, and do the same thing. Put 1 in the middle, put 1 on each side. Then I go along and do 1 whole side and then go back to the other side, again, pulling it taut against the other weighted side, and you've got it. Loose row covers are what allows the wind to get under them and lift them. All right, we're past time. And I'm going to answer this one last question about repairing holes in row covers. And then we're signing off for today. Is there any way to repair holes in row covers? I've heard people do all kinds of different things. My opinion is it's just, the wind or the moisture ruins whatever you do, unless you're going to sew it. And, that's all about how much time you have, right? So we oftentimes double row cover for stuff. So we have a holey stock, some that have holes that we know we can use as the first or second layer on a double. But yeah, I do not know of any efficient way that actually lasts, particularly for the amount of time that it takes you to do it. So friends, I'm signing off. Remember, keep your eye on our new seed category. And I'm over at 1 o'clock on Clubhouse. Today, I'm talking about one of my last podcasts, The Truth About Seed Starting. And so we'll be talking there. And, you can come up and actually, it's like us talking on the telephone. You can ask your questions there. Would love to have you join me. You just have to download the phone app, join Clubhouse, then look for my club, Flower Farming. And I hope to see you over there. And if not, see you next week, friends. Ciao.